Start by drawing and cutting out the basic shape for the detachable Type 1 phaser. If you can't do this freehand, you can use the template at the woodlandelf.com/patterns/Star Trek. Then do the same thing for the larger Type 2 phaser base. The Type 1 should be big enough that it extends beyond the Type 2. Now cut yourself an inch-wide rectangle out of 1/8" foam and hot glue it onto the bottom of your Type 1 phaser. You want to be just off-center. Trim the edges to make it all even. Then get yourself another piece of thin foam larger than your phaser base. And you're just going to hot glue that right onto your phaser. It works best if you only glue half of it, and then glue the other half once you have the first half pressed on. And so you end up with a little ridge. So next cut out the outround to make it the same size as your phaser base. Then you'll do the same thing to the other side of the phaser, except this time you'll be doing 2 rectangles. And then of course just glue a piece of foam right over the ridge. And even out the sides. So then get yourself a long piece of foam wider than the sides of your phaser. It's got to be wider than the height. And you're just going to put a little hot glue on the side of your phaser and start putting that long piece of foam all the way around. Again, this works better if you do it in sections because the foam tends to melt when the hot glue hits it. So once you've gotten all the way around, just trim off the edge and seal it down with a little hot glue. And then just cut off the outside edge. So next find yourself a ridged button to use as a dial and cut it in half. And you're just going to glue that right at the bottom of the ridge on the left-hand side of your phaser. Then get yourself a sequin to use as an indicator light and glue it onto the right side of the phaser. Next get yourself a Russell Stover's container and you're going to cut out one of the squares. The bottom of this kind of looks like electric grating, which is why we're using this. So measure it out first before you start gluing it. Get yourself a piece of tin foil and fold it into a rectangle. You want it to be just a little bit wider than your Russell Stover's grating. So once you've got that set, mark where it goes and hot glue on the piece of tin foil. And then put some hot glue on the phaser where the grating will go and glue on your Russell Stover's grating. It's important that you put the glue on the phaser instead of on the plastic because the Russell Stover's plastic will melt if you do it the other way. So then cut yourself a hollow rectangle out of thin foam. And you're just going to glue that onto the very front of your phaser. Then take some silver paint and paint a line all the way down the center of the sides of your phaser. And you'll go all the way around. So next go back to your floor foam in your Type 2 phaser, and you want to trace about the front 2 inches of it. And then of course just cut that out. And then you'll just hot glue that right onto the bottom of your phaser body. So next you're going to cut yourself out a handle-sized piece of foam. I was getting low on foam, so I cut 2 rectangles and glued them together to make a handle. Then you're going to wrap your handle in thin black foam. You're going to put a piece on both the front and the back, and just hot glue those in place. So here's the handle. Next, draw off a section diagonally and cut it with an X-Acto knife. Then get yourself another thin strip of foam, and you're going to glue it about a ½ inch below the short side of your handle. You want to glue that all the way around. Then just trim off the excess. Trim it to size so that it matches the shape of the handle. Then just glue the angled side of the handle to the underside of your phaser body. Next you're going to cut 2 half-moon shapes out of floor foam, and you're going to end up gluing them one on top of the other and glue them to the front top of the phaser. Make sure to keep the lines even. Next, cut yourself 3 small tombstone-shaped pieces for the back end of the phaser, making each one just a hair smaller than the one before it. So then you'll glue one right onto the phaser, and then just glue a tiny piece of foam on top of that in the middle. Put a little dab of glue on top of that. And put another of your tombstone pieces on top of that. And then do the same thing for the third piece. Then just cut a little notch of gray foam about 1 inch long, cut to match the back side of the phaser. And when you have it all glued together, the Type 1 will sit right in between there. So just glue that in place. And then just glue one final longer tombstone-shaped piece on top of that. And then give those black pieces a little brushing of silver paint. So then get yourself a squirt bottle, and you want to cut a piece off of the tube. You want that to be about 2 inches long, and then get yourself 3 plastic water bottle caps. Poke a hole right down the center of the caps. If the poked holes aren't wide enough, you can enlarge them with scissors. Then you'll just slide your bottle caps onto your straw. Put a little bit of hot glue at the top of the first one and slide that in place. Then put some hot glue around the bottom of it and slide the second one into it. Do the same thing for the third. You want to make sure the open end of the caps is towards the straw. So on the flat side, put some hot glue and glue it to the front of the phaser. Now going back to the Type 1 phaser, put some hot glue on the back of a magnet and put it on the bottom of the phaser. Then put a corresponding magnet on the Type 2 phaser body. So that will stick right on there, and you can pull it off whenever you want to separate the phasers. So then get yourself a little bead, put a dab of hot glue on it, and stick it on the trigger area. Then take a snap base, put a little bit of glue on the back of it, and stick it towards the back of the phaser. Then put a little glue on the front of that, and stick on a yellow bead to use as an indicator light. Then get some kind of a button that looks like a knob. Put some glue on the back side of it, and stick it towards the front of the phaser. Then get another knob-shaped button and stick it right on the back top of the phaser. Take a piece of tin foil and wrap it around your bottle caps. Tuck the edges into the open end of the bottle caps. And take a little silver paint and paint over your trigger bead. And so then here we have the completed version of the phaser.